Yalda Mousavinia.
Hi, I'm Yalda. I'm the co-founder of Space Cooperative, and we're a new company, and I'm going to be telling you all about it shortly. The topic of this presentation is cooperative development of a lunar metropolis. This is the rough abstract, basically. I'll just skip through that. So I'm going to describe Space Cooperative, and then I'm going to describe steps towards a lunar metropolis, and then a network overview, network governance, and challenges. So what is Space Cooperative? We're a worker-owned cooperative that formed with the purpose and intent to serve multiple objectives of its members, including but not limited to promoting and pursuing the sustainable and peaceful human development on Earth and the planets beyond. So we identify ourselves as a social purpose or social enterprise because we're concerned with people, including the workforce, humanity, the universe, protecting our planet, and evolutionary expanding, prosperity, unleashing creativity on a massive scale, and also purpose, enabling humanity to spend time on what their heart desires. So how does this tie to what we are doing as a company? The first thing we have identified as far as how can we make our dreams come true. We think that to do that, you need an online platform that will bring people together to create the world that we want to create here on Earth and beyond. So that's the network. It's a network to enable global collaboration on large-scale space missions, and Earth is in space too, so Earth is definitely part of this. So users will have the ability to self-organize into local and also virtual working groups, and the collaboration will be decentralized, autonomous, and it'll have democratic self-governance. So while Space Cooperative, Inc. is launching this network, we do not see ourselves as the perpetual stewards of the network. That will emerge, so it is decentralized, and we are not the people that are managing everything on it. So how can that work? A cryptocurrency will enable the decentralized nature of such a space mission collaboration network. I'm not sure how many people are familiar with cryptocurrency. Who owns cryptocurrency here? Okay, 2 people, 3 people. Well, you're probably going to be learning about it more in the next few years. If you don't already own some now, you probably will in 5 years, maybe less. But it's a digital asset designed to work as a medium of exchange using cryptography to secure the transactions and to control the creation of additional units of the currency. A lot of banks are already starting to adopt blockchain technology. Cryptocurrency makes it more efficient to transfer money between networks. It makes transactions, instead of taking a day for an ACH transfer or taking 3 days, it can happen in 5 seconds. So this type of technology will enable a global collaboration network where value is being transferred from country to country in an instant to enable a project. So a step towards the lunar metropolis. Space Cooperative, we're not focusing on one single mission. This presentation was, it's more of a concept. It was put together for the purpose of this Congress. I shaped it around this lunar metropolis. So at its peak, the Apollo program employed 400,000 people and required the support of over 20,000 industrial firms and universities. If we want to go to the moon, if we want to have a metropolis there, aren't we going to need just as many people? How can we do that with the way that society is organized today? I guess you think of like the Google Lunar X Prize. Is that even going to happen by the end of the year? Like, is a competition to send a rover there and get $30 million? Is that what's going to take us there? Or can we think of it in a different way? What if all of those Google Lunar X Prize teams just converged and they decided, well, let's just send one rover and use all of our knowledge and use all of our resources. Maybe they probably would get it there and they can get the $30 million and distribute it amongst the team. We think the X Prize is a great thing, but we're trying to think, well, what is the alternative? Maybe there's a more cooperative way where we can go to the moon again. So to create a lunar metropolis, what's needed is the ability to scale, to supersede our accomplishments in the Apollo era. So for large-scale space missions, we know that the budget of a government is typically needed. But what if we had a strategic crowd? So this is a great quote by Buckminster Fuller, someone who I'm very inspired by. And he says, if you want to teach people a new way of thinking, don't bother trying to teach them. Instead, give them a tool, the use of which will lead to new ways of thinking. This is a scene from a movie I was very inspired by. So there's the tool. Maybe that can cause some change. I'm going to describe the tool now. So this is Space Cooperative, the network. We haven't launched yet, so I'm giving you a preview of what it would be like. So you go to the landing page, there'll be different missions. There can be like terraforming Earth, the Moontropolis, Martian farms, maybe some asteroid mining, exploring the ocean worlds, creating cloud cities in Venus. We plan to launch with at least 6 missions. At the moment, we are in the process of identifying what those are, the objectives. But I'm going to talk about this Moontropolis a little bit. So basically, you click into the mission, and it would have a summary. There will be a crew that's part of it. There will be integrated file sharing, and then proposals. So you scroll down, and the mission would have different projects, and the projects would have calls for proposals. And there's also a discussion forum. You can talk about topics like, well, skyscrapers or domes? What makes sense for a metropolis? So, of course, for such a network, you need social profiles. So it would probably have a lot of the familiar tools to actually match people and needs to projects. It would be important for the projects to identify what skills are needed, for the people to identify what skills they have or what research they're knowledgeable about. And then you can start to match people to needs. So this is, additional features that the profile would have. You can see the publications, activity, followers, the different missions that they're part of. So you'd see, then you can get more details about the publications, followers. And then also a forum is very important. You need to go beyond a Facebook group to discuss ideas, because it has to be more detailed than just comments and flame wars. It needs to be like action, ideas that lead towards action. So, you have this, this discussion here, and the discussion can lead towards next steps. So these next steps can be added as the discussion is evolved. And then these steps can then be added to a project plan. And then, while we don't have VR in our initial launch, we think that it will be a very important feature. Because as we are a platform that aims to create space missions and a platform that aims to build them, there will be elements like 3D models on them. So why not actually allow people to experience them? People that aren't designing the models, but the general public, the enthusiasts. And also just for the engineers as well to experience what it is they're building. And in the VR experience, you can go there and you can also, talk to people. This is a rover we're working on MIT, and then someone says, well, does your team need help? Right now, a lot of universities, they have these projects, but it's not very open to actually start to contribute. But maybe they do want help, and if that's allowed, export compliant-wise, they can get it. So how does this all work? Now I'm going to describe the governance of a network, because to truly be successful in accomplishing these goals, the network will require structure and process for how you can take an idea, how you can fund it, then how you can build it. So essentially, the platform will have multiple projects. There will be a protocol of sorts that will carry the rules. There will be different contributors in the network, different organizations, those 20,000 organizations, those 400,000 people or more. And there will be a work breakdown structure. If you want to build space missions, you need 7-level deep work breakdown structures. It's like, how are you going to crowdsource it? It's like, you have to build the work breakdown structure before you can crowdsource it. This is not your normal crowdsourcing type of platform. So then, you have the work breakdown structure, you have the people that can help, it gets assigned out, and then there has to be a system of review too, like a quality control. So there's a brainstorm, propose, design. These can be done without being anywhere in person too. It's all digital work. And then there's the develop, test, launch, operate. So the white is stuff that doesn't require being anywhere in person typically. Sometimes it might, a ground station. But otherwise it's like this early phase, if people are motivated and passionate enough, you don't even need money to start this early phase right here. But basically, yeah, for it to work, the work needs to be evaluated. It's like there have to be people that are doing the evaluation and can rate the work, like training required, needs improvement, satisfactory. So this is where a token would come into place. For example, if a task was worth 10 tokens, which converts to $100 or something, and if they completed the task and it was training required, then they only get half of that. So it's a type of a gamification that encourages people to improve, and it has a feedback mechanism that tells them when they're doing something wrong. But of course, for this to work, you need experts. And it's like those experts are matched with apprentices. Committees are overlooking the strategy. Coordinators are, working with the experts and the apprentices to make sure that projects are moving along. So, there are different tasks like proposing mission, defining requirements, designing and developing concepts, producing, launching, and operating. So it's like, obviously, then to build things, you do need money. Whether the investors are donors or philanthropists, it's really up to the individual or the organization to start to believe that this can work for the money to come in. So there has to be, what am I to say? Okay, so basically, like for a virtual space agency to happen, we have the people, we have the knowledge, we have the resources. The money is what's missing. So how is that money centralized? And the solution is it's not centralized. It's binded by a token, but it's decentralized. That means we're no longer concerned about some single corporation or some single agency being the leader of some initiative. It's more like the money is flowing through the system so we can accomplish this common goal. And we think that that is how we can enable such an agency to be funded. If you remove the money from pride for being as part of a single organization or being part of a single nation, but allowing the money to come through for the purpose, not for the profit. So essentially, you would have the network, and the network would have different mandates, like social purpose, research and development, and near-term revenue. So you can have projects on the network that actually generate revenue, that actually operate as businesses. And that's how the internal economy of the system will increase as far as being less reliant on donations from the public, because now you are a self-sustaining business. While in the beginning you might have relied on those donations, those contributions to start up, you've then surpassed that startup phase, and now you are a self-sustaining agency of sorts. So it's like, how do you determine like what the right balance of projects are to become a self-sustaining agency? And this is where the token comes into play, and I'm going to try to describe more about cryptocurrencies and the evolution of them, and how it and why it matters for this governance. Basically, there's a cryptocurrency right now called Ethereum, and it allows you to build tokens on top of their blockchain. And with these tokens that you build on top of the blockchain, you can code governance into it for how does this token get moved from one person to another? Who is operating where the money goes? So it's an evolved mechanism for how money flows within the system. So for example, we're gonna launch with governance that says there's gonna be an advisory board. That advisory board is not necessarily space cooperative. It can be, these are the 20 space experts or Earth experts that we have identified to manage the network to launch with. And then we say, in the next year, the users of the network will vote on who the next advisory board is. And since you're part of the advisory board, you have special tokens that allow you to pass funding decisions. So the network might say, next year, let's launch a rover to the moon, because everyone in the network or the advisory board has generally agreed that that is what makes the most sense. So essentially, the blockchain allows this type of control with executing the funding based on what the other token holders in the network have voted on. So it allows the network to be decentralized and to operate based on the programs, based on the code of the network. And it allows it, so while Space Cooperative launches it, the network takes control of it and it evolves into a truly decentralized virtual space agency of sorts. So we also think that standard members that aren't part of the advisory board should have this 49.9% control, something like that, and the advisory board 50.1. So that's another way of if the members, don't entirely agree with all of the advisory board, their votes can influence the dial to move in one direction or another. So for such a thing to happen, there has to be identity verification, because we don't think that the people that put the more money in should influence the decisions more. So it's a more of a democratic system where one person has one vote. And we think that this is important because we are an organization that is interested in the future of humanity and the future of building new civilizations on Earth and beyond. So we think that you shouldn't think of it as if you have more money, you have more influence. We are interested in building towards a more cooperative society where it's one person, one vote. And we should start to experiment with that in such a network to truly change how businesses have been traditionally running, where if you have more shares, you have more influence. So with such a network where we aim to build open source space missions, there are going to be a lot of challenges as far as, well, if you're creating a global network and you want this mission design or spacecraft design process to be open and collaborative, there's a lot of export control regulations, especially with people in the United States exporting their knowledge to abroad. I think it's definitely more difficult for US citizens. So to solve that, you're going to need also a decentralized infrastructure with how the knowledge is managed. For example, you can have a central planning type node where you can share ideas, but you don't share detailed technical designs. And then the community decides, which unit should actually do the technical designs, which unit should do the building of the spacecraft, and then they decide, okay, we should send this to that country. So then you do the planning of which international entity would do the detailed designs, and then that knowledge can be contained within the system. So then you can work with the laws, with creating a collaborative, cooperative, and global agency. So if you don't do something like this, there's no way you can globally collaborate on high tech. So some great examples of crowdsourcing, like I said, I think XPRIZE is still a great example, because it inspires so many different teams to come together to do things that haven't been done or have been done in the past but haven't been done in 50 years. Or but also Wikipedia, I think that's probably the best example that probably all of us use multiple times a week. It's like, this is an encyclopedia that has been crowdsourced, and people contribute to it, to update it, not because they're receiving any money in return for it, but because they are passionate about maintaining the knowledge. So I think that within the space exploration community, a lot of that already exists, where people want to contribute towards space, not because they want to get money out of it, but because they think it's important. So with that being said, I think that I'm very confident in humanity, in building a virtual distributed space cooperative. One example of such a decentralized agency that was built upon a smart contract was the DAO. It actually was an unsuccessful in some sense, that it got hacked. But it was the DAO is the Decentralized Autonomous Organization, and it was a smart contract built on the Ethereum blockchain, but it raised $150 million, like in a very short amount of time. But someone was looking into the code of it, and they hacked it, so the money, a lot of the money that was in it, they were able to get it into their accounts instead. But the people that oversee the Ethereum blockchain were able to fix the hack, so the people that lost the money didn't really lose it. But that's like an example of a cryptocurrency that was launched that raised $150 million in a short amount of time. And in this past year, if you Google ICOs right now, there are so many other companies that are raising $100 million, $300 million in like 10 minutes. 10 minutes, yeah. So it's like, it's a crazy thing, but why can't that be done for space? Why not? We have 2 examples of some crowd-funded spacecraft, planetary resources or the light sails, solar sails craft, and those both raised around $1 million. That's a very small example, but it's like you'd at least be able to fund something like that within this network, and a small mission like that might be a good example to get the network going, show success with at least launching a CubeSat and then build upon it. Another highly successful in funding was this game Star Citizen, and they've raised $148 million, and I think they've been raising the money over the course of a few years, and they still haven't delivered the game yet. But that's just an example of a space type of game, raising $148 million. So crowdfunding hundreds of millions of dollars, it's not an impossible thing. And that concludes the end of my presentation.
Wait, stop. Where's the other one?
Well, we'll hand it back. Have you spent much time thinking about a deliberately pathological member who came in and tried to cause as much trouble as they possibly could, and how you might respond if somebody did that?
Yeah, so I guess it's a question of at what point in the network or in the design process are they? It's like, are they just in the forum and they're causing a lot of drama there? Because the forum will have, the platform will have etiquette, as will the forum. Wikipedia also has a lot of, governance for how people should cooperate, how people should collaborate, how something gets added, how something gets disputed. So it'll be a self-governing thing within the network, where if it is related to a project, for example, and then people in the group decide, okay, well, this person cannot be part of this project anymore. So you have to still operate like an organization as far as voting when someone is being destructive and having a process in place that might, remove them from the project. Maybe, they get demoted to a training type level where they can be taught again, oh, well, this is what you did wrong. This is, if you want to improve, you can join back. So it has to be a process like that. Just similar to like if you're in a community, if you're in a village with someone, maybe they've been in the village with you for a while and they do something wrong, like are you just gonna like kick them out of your village? You have to give chances for people to rehabilitate.
Unless you discover they're a sociopath. And
Yeah.
Okay, is there something about your particular cryptocurrency and your blockchain that makes it more resistant to hacking than the other examples you showed, like the DAO, I think?
Our current plan is to build a smart contract on top of the Ethereum blockchain. So we have not developed the cryptocurrency yet, but to do a successful cryptocurrency, usually it's good to have it open source, have it reviewed by security experts in the community, work with experienced smart contract developers. So you're never going to be 100% secure from being hacked, but there are a lot of measures that you can take to ensure that that doesn't happen, and that's from learning from past mistakes. There are a lot of hacks happening, still. There will be a lot of hacks happening in the next few years, and like there was another recent one with the Ethereum wallet that happened, and it's just usually just like a simple like programming, human programming error. So there's no way to say that it won't happen, but the same thing can be, said for a bank account as well. Like there's no way to 100% protect anything.
So we've been doing Project Icarus since 2009, and that evolved into Icarus Interstellar in 2011. And so, we've been working for almost 10 years in a virtual organization. So the planning, the meetings, the execution, the publishing, the fundraising. So it's really exciting to see, we've kind of been doing things the same way almost, and it's exciting to see you use this fresh approach and, come from the blockchain perspective. My question is, are you planning on, did I understand correctly that you are going to be launching your own cryptocurrency? So presumably you're going to be doing an ICO, an initial coin offering, and then you're going to be using the funds you raise to distribute those tokens in return for work towards the project. So that was my first question. Are you doing an ICO? And then next, what's going to be the value to people who are investing in the cryptocurrency?
Yeah, so first, yes, we are going to be doing an ICO, and we want to think of the cryptocurrency more as a utility token and steer away from thinking of it as a security, more of a membership type thing, like airline miles. If you purchase $1,000 in airline tickets, you get this many points back, and then with those points and tokens, you can use them, within the network to purchase things. Whether it's maybe you want. Maybe someone just wants like some consulting services, and it can also be integrated with our virtual world that we plan to build and creating the digital economy within there. It can also be used, we organize events right now, but if we want to move towards organizing conferences, it can also be used for, discounts at conferences. So the cryptocurrency can be thought of as a membership token into the organization, and being a member gives you particular privileges and benefits, even like the privilege to be on the advisory board or vote on funding decisions.
Yes, I would like to say that really good overview of decentralization seems like a really great idea. I would like to ask is in one of your slides you had 50.1% for advisory, and everybody else 49.9%. If it's going to be crowdsourced, in reality, the advisory board is not the one that ends up controlling, correct? And also, you may have individuals that go and they may focus all their work, maybe put in 40, 60 hours or something like that. So I think maybe, I don't know if it's necessarily a question, but I think maybe you may want to rethink a little bit more of that. But it seems like a really cool idea. I don't know, how would you like to answer that?
I guess I don't understand the question.
So you had the advisory board at 50.1% and everybody else at 49.9. And so why exactly is that the case?
Okay, so that protects the network from, basically if the network identifies, or if the advisory board identifies that some bad, like those it gives the advisory board executive control if they are operating in consensus, essentially. It's kind of like.
And that's what I'm saying,
But
is that.
one other thing I want to say is this is the initial proposed governance, and that can also be modified. That's another part of just general governance, is it's an initial proposed infrastructure, and also for people to be on the advisory board, there will be different like job requirements in place. So, for example, the previous advisory board can prevent someone from being added to the next advisory board if they're not vetted for. So that at least ensures that the following advisory board, there has been a vetting process.
Okay. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Charles Radley. In full disclosure, I'm involved with a group called True Crowd. Wondering if you've considered equity crowdfunding, like a micro IPO, and also wondering how far along are you in the fundraising process, or how much has been raised so far?
So we're a worker-owned cooperative, and we do not seek out venture capital. And this is also why something like a cryptocurrency can help boost. Oh, funding. We're going to be launching a crowdfunding campaign, a traditional one for the cooperative, and we haven't done that yet, but we plan on doing that next month. So that would be more of a pre-ICO. Equity crowdfunding, I think there are, some players coming in the space, like Orbit, Muse, or Space Starters. There's a bunch of like those types of platforms already, and we think that it's like, I mean, it's not, like, to me, I think if you think of it as equity crowdfunding, then you're getting into this more, like, more of a profit-making mindset, as opposed to, like, community building, being cooperative, being collaborative. With a token, that kind of makes it as, if there are enough people that do believe in the general vision, and the tokens are purchased, the value of that token can go up more as a side effect. So it should be more, we think it should just be more like decentralized, so the token is not thought of as a security. But we think that within such a network, it is possible for equity crowdfunding to emerge for smaller businesses and smaller projects. It's still decentralized because the advisory board is not necessarily part of any single organization. They are not part of any single nation. Yeah, so basically we think that that is an initial good starting point, just to ensure that militarized technologies are not funded, especially you want to launch this the first year. You want to ensure that the community is moving towards a positive direction with the technology that is being crowdsourced, but the governance can be evolved so the advisory board has less power, and so the advisory board vanishes. You can also, build towards models of more of an automated, intelligent system where there are more policies in the network, and it's just ensuring that those policies are governed as opposed to an individual having control.
Well, I mean, that's a good point. Like it's difficult when you get power in the beginning, it's hard to give it up later.
Well, for a government to disappear, you need a technological solution that supports the proper evolution of that to happen. It's not something that you can automatically implement. It's something more like, hey, if we want to go to space, if we want to go to the moon, and you're a colony of 100 people, well, what is the governance for that colony? What is the money or the currency for that economy? I think as answering these questions for this type of organization, you start to figure out actually how life would operate on other worlds or on alternative cities here on Earth. So it's an experimental process.
I, for one, welcome our new AI overlords. All right, thank you. Yalda Mousavinia.